Mama Kimi.
Hello, Samuel.
You and my actual mother are the only people that I have a little jingle for. But yours is Mama Kimi. And then my mom's is every time I call her is Mama. And we both end up singing that one bit of that Queen song.
Yes.
So this is my first podcast. Do we start with the elephant in the room that is just being a parent super hard?
My gosh. We might as well, because I feel like that's like my deep, dark secret, which is not really a secret because anyone I come across, I can't help but express how hard it is to. But I feel like when it comes to, Instagram and YouTube and all the things, you always just see the love and the beauty and the joy and the cuteness and all of these things of being a parent. And it's starting to make me feel like I do have this closet secret of how tough it really is. And I definitely try to be honest about that part, but you almost can't be too honest. And it's not because I'm trying to sell people a false image of what's happening. It's just because for the sake of my own survival, I need to keep it positive. I need to, if I'm going to, put something out there about Buddy, I need to have it highlighting what I love about him and the good parts, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to wake up and keep going every day, because motherhood is by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. And I'm just getting started. And that is scary. But you were a terror, because I have talked to your mama and I was in tears when I came to your house last time I was on Kauai. I don't even know what the issue was with Buddy at the time, but your mom, it's so funny how almost the most comforting thing a person can do is just relate, know? And your mom told me you were a bad little boy.
It got bad.
Yeah. And that gives me hope, because you're one of my favorite humans in the whole wide world. Mm-hmm. But she said the first time she ever even tried to take a trip and left you home alone with a babysitter, the babysitter called in no time crying and just said, he is trying to kill me.
She thought I was trying to kill her. Disclaimer, I was not. I was simply playing Home Alone, which I didn't think about. That kid's trying to kill the people that are trying to break into his house. So yes. I could see how she thought she was going to die.
There's booby traps everywhere.
Oh, it was bad. I'm pretty sure I put nails in boards. It was that bad. I had things that would fall and try to hit her. She was also very gullible. Not good. I could pick up that at a very young age very quickly. I was like, oh, I'm getting away with everything. I don't know what she bit on, but I put a tester out and she bit, and I'm like, pfft. I had her believing that, I think it was Thursdays, we're allowed to have slip and slides in the house where we just put oil over the house and just slide. I don't know how I convinced her of that.
Oh my gosh.
Bad. I don't know if she ended up making it or if they sent someone else in. But yes, the moral of the story is it's going to get better. Kimi, it's going to get better.
I really hope so. In all honesty, I just don't want to go down in history as that girl that, was the mother of that psychopath. I don't. Mm-hmm. I want to raise a good human. I know that he's a good human. I know that my son is a good human, but I'm just saying, as a toddler, he is kind of a little psychopath. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And their brains are just developing, all that stuff, but it's living with a maniac every single day. And there's and it's an emotional roller coaster. This morning we had so many good moments. We had a dance party and it was so fun. And then the next minute he's just destroying everything in sight on a timeout, and everything's in pieces.
Do you ever feel like it's your fault as a mother?
I think that Justin and I, as parents, just try so hard together that I don't have too much of that self blame. I mean, I definitely, it makes you question everything for sure. Sometimes I just wonder, like, is it because of my job? Is it because I always have all these cameras on me? And maybe, you start to question everything. Maybe he just is starving for attention or something like that. But I know that I give him a ton of attention. But it's good. I mean, it makes you always check yourself. But I think for the most part, I feel pretty solid in the effort that Justin and I have put out. And I feel really solid in the amount of unconditional love we have. So I don't really feel a whole ton of blame. I think I just feel a lot of frustration because I've always been such a goal-oriented person and know that if I set my mind to something and I give it all the love and all the effort, that I can watch it grow and I can watch this goal be achieved. And for the first time in my life, I'm just like, oh man, I'm just getting worked, like I am just getting worked. And I am waking up and like giving myself these pep talks every day and going out there and stepping up to the plate and just getting bulldozed over every single day. Like, if I didn't have Justin as my partner, I don't know how I would do it. Because at least we're suffering together. And I feel terrible that all I'm doing is talking smack about my kid right now. But, but I feel like I put the good stuff out there on a daily basis. And I just have to be honest and say, like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. For sure.
Keep going, Mama.
You give me hope.
Sisu. Isn't that what you're little?
Yes. Oh, gosh.
I was reading it today. I'm like, I bet she reads this every day.
Oh, my gosh. That's so funny. Yeah. Sisu. It's like a special, almost magical, like, quality reserved for tough times. And it's so interesting because I actually put that quote up during the Maui fires because that was really a tough, dark time for me. Maui being my home island and Lahaina just being somewhere with so much history and so much memory and so many friends, and watching, that place just be burnt to the ground, and trying to show up for the community every day and help, but just be, depressed really about the situation. I put that word up beside my kitchen, sisu, to help me reserve a special strength and quality for hard times. But yeah, it definitely can also be applied to raising a toddler for sure.
Damn. Yeah. That's hard. Whole lot of hard. But I guess maybe focusing on the positivity of raising a kid. I just have the utmost faith that that kid's going to come out amazing because he has you as a mother and Justin as a father. And the reason I asked if you ever feel like it's your fault is that's something that my mom used to feel like. And I think at some point she believed it, that it was her fault. And she let other people tell her that, like, kind of put her down. And that's something she never completely got over. And she still feels like she was a bad mother.
Right.
Which is insane.
It is insane. Your mom is unbelievable.
The best.
She really is. But I can see that if I didn't have such a strong support system, I did say that the other night. I actually just looked Justin in the eye and I said, like, I don't want to say anything that's going to bring you down, but I have to just say, like, I really thought I was going to be a better mother. And I started crying. And he instantly just was like, you are such a good mom. And just, put Humpty Dumpty back together again with his kindness. And I have a great support system of friends who constantly just, like, give us love and know, like, that it does take a village. So I think for the most part, I definitely don't have people putting me down, but I do have this, like, this fear, because before I was a parent, oh my gosh, anytime I saw, like, a disobedient child, I would absolutely blame the parents in my mind. I wouldn't say anything, but in my mind, I would just be like, oh my gosh, that was my kid. It's like, it's so easy to do. And it's so easy to just think that like, yeah, that the more challenging kids is because something is not being done right at home. And now I just realized that a lot of times you just get what you get. And and I'm not trying to say like Buddy's bad, but I am just saying he is my biggest challenge. And no matter how much love and effort I put into it, it's not easy. And I do believe, because of what I have learned in life, that the things that you love the most that end up challenging you the most are going to be the absolute best rewards, the absolute most valuable thing that you've ever done. And so if this holds true to that, like, man, I'm winning the jackpot, but I'm just in the tough part of the climb right now,
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And I can't wait to come over here and to see you a little bit further out of the valley.
Yes, exactly.
I did that. Yeah. But yeah, I think the rewards are going to be great. I think that I love Buddy to death, and I know he's a monster, but he's got a really special light about him.
Were your brothers just as hard as you?
No, super easy.
And that's what I mean by you get what you get. Like, I'm not trying to sound like I'm not trying to sound super judgmental against my child, but I just mean it. Like, I never would have thought that these little souls really come into this earth with their own individual fires and personalities without it all being just about nurture. Like, I always thought it was all about nurture, and you just form them, to be these little molds of what's best for them. But it's like, no, this guy came out vicious as a newborn, and is only getting more fired up as a toddler. But like a lot of good people tell me, that's a good thing. And that's strong-willed. And if we can just now channel that energy, into something that's going to be productive and good for this world, we'll all stand back and watch him go. He's
going to be a freaking terror in a good way soon. I believe this wholeheartedly. And I'm excited for when he's like old enough to come diving. He's going to turn into a hammer of a kid. Like, being around you guys and this whole community, that's one of my favorite. Every time I'm around you, you're always surrounded by amazing people. Like, I feel like I'm blessed with the same thing. I'm just always around amazing people. And having a community, like you're saying, it takes a village, with a kid especially, but all things. It's so good to have like good people around you that lift you up, that like get you outside and having fun and like loving life. And the community is so important. And you got such a cool one here, especially the dive community is one of my favorites, I think.
Absolutely.
What do you think that is? Like, why is that such a special?
That's a really good question. I've never actually thought about why, but I've absolutely 100% instantly recognized that out of all activities, out of all different things that I've gotten into, the minute I got into diving, the spearfishing community is just something different. It's just something so special. And I don't know why. I mean, I think, okay, if I were to think about it, I mean, first of all, like, for the most part, it's not like the whole point of it is to go out and get food, for like, and there's so many easier ways to do that. And so I think it attracts a certain person who wants to slow down, who wants to do something that is, in essence, very, very simple, but not very, very easy. Who wants to, we'll say no thank you to just efficiency and the way of society and mass production, all of that, and then say yes, please, to something that it just takes so much work, so much effort, so much going inward. And I think that's another part of it is in order to even spearfish, if you're free diving, it is just such this mental challenge in order to hold your breath, the way that you need to relax yourself, the way that you need to calm down, the way that you need to find this zen in the midst of what could be chaos. I mean, I think those are just all qualities that come out of everyone in real life, that might come out in the forms of generosity, of humility, of all these other things, because I just think that's the type of person it attracts, or that's what it can bring out in you. Because if you're going to work that hard for a meal, it's going to mean that much more to you. If it adds that much more meaning to your life, you're probably going to want to share that meaning with someone else. And so there's just all these things that become so full circle that make it so much more than just like a sport or something for pure ego or trophy or money or whatnot.
Yeah, you're deeper in it than I am. So I wouldn't even like have the opportunity to see the money or ego or like, because we just dive for fun. No one's that good. No one's trying to be the best. We're just going, if someone gets a fish, you're like stoked for them. It's not like, oh, like, fuck, he's diving. Maybe there's like a little bit of competition between boys, like, oh, your cookies not exactly adding up to mine on this dive, but just like fun kind. But I was trying to, I've never even thought of that question either. I was trying to think of it in my head. And I was like, yeah, there's not too much ego in diving that I'm aware of, that I've seen, where it maybe exists more in, because I mean, I had the same thought as you. It's food. You're putting food on the table. But I know a lot of different ways of putting food on the table that have a lot more ego involved. Like the hunting community, also epic. But I would say there's more ego in that one for sure. Maybe it's because you're underwater.
I think that there is something about going into another world, which you literally are doing when you're underwater. Like you are transforming yourself from this place where you live and this place where you're comfortable, from a place where you talk and there's words and all these things. And you're literally leaving to kind of go into this other world that makes it something so unique that I haven't experienced anywhere else. And you can't talk, you can't even breathe. So you're doing like the majority of your activity in a place where you can't even take a breath. I mean, that is a different world that you're visiting. And I think there's something about that not only attracts a certain type of person, but it forms a certain kind of bond. Because if you and I were able to just pick up and go to Mars today, we would probably have a bond for the rest of our life that no one else would even come close to understanding. And I think that that's what it is about spearfishing. It's like, yeah, you might get a little competitive, this and that in a fun way, but for the most part, you are going and doing something with a partner that no one else in this world is experiencing. You're doing it without even talking to them while you're underwater, and you are sharing, and then you're hunting. So you also become a pack, you become literally a pack, like wolves. And that's why I think what you were talking about earlier, any team victory is a victory. When my partner gets a fish, first of all, I am so stoked for them, but I feel like we did it, and it usually, if you have a really good dive partner and if you're doing, like, we're actually working together to bring fish in, that's what it is. Like, it's not like you should be working together. You should be taking a drop. And if you can't get a fish, the way you should be leaving that situation or what you're communicating to your partner, it should be with every intention of hoping that they'll get it on their next drop. And so there's just something about that, I think, that forms such a primal connection that isn't normally shared between humans in this modern day society.
Not to mention your life is literally in their hands.
Exactly. And ego will get you killed. So that's another reason why that should be the first thing to go. The
ocean, no matter what thing you're doing, the ocean will humble you very fast.
Definitely.
It's probably why we have such humble people around here for the most part. Hawaii is a pretty humble culture, I would say.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
it's probably has to do with the fact that the ocean is so interconnected with our culture. And that like even like I don't know, I can't come in with any like very specific words in Hawaiian, but I know that the ocean was never looked at as a barrier in Hawaiian culture. It was continuous, and it was a connection and a highway. Voyagers, the Polynesians, but most cultures saw the ocean kind of as a barrier and
right.
didn't really include it in their world. But yeah, the ocean will humble you so fast. I think I got humbled when I was 6, and you like are on that sandbar, and then you're not, and then you're in a full panic, just getting ripped. And I can still remember like my screaming just for my parents that they don't see me, and I'm just like flailing. And then finally I see one of my uncles see me, and I'm like, and just full sprint, they came and grabbed me. But yeah, you'll get humbled quick. I still like am humbled every time I go in the ocean, just like calm, respectful, very aware of the currents and the tides of like, I'm good now. I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm still very aware of currents and tides. I'm like, oh, I'm not diving here because it's a full moon and I don't want to deal with that current. Like,
right.
I don't feel like even the chance of getting swept around that corner, and then no, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. No, a lot of people ask me like, how do you do it? How do you have no fear? And it's like, oh, it's not that I don't have fear. Like, I think that, fear is a very, very, very important thing to have in the ocean, but not so much this just like fear that leads into this sense of panic, that won't do you any good, but just like a very healthy sense of awareness that that you are in something so much bigger than you. And so it is so very important not to become complacent about anything and to be able to stay calm in the face of any type of adversity, which I think is also important in real life, and know how to respond accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But that all is what happens when you are able to make fear your friend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to push fear out, because fear will only get stronger if you try to push it out. If fear is knocking at my door and I'm just try to ignore it, then it just turns into this sense of anxiety.
Uh-huh.
And then if something actually happens, and because I'm already anxious, it'll turn into a sense of panic. And none of that is helpful. So I open the door for fear, and I say, come on in. Here's your seat at the table. Tell me how you feel. And to me, like, making fear my friend, like, that's like another powerhouse. You can't let them drive, that's for sure. Can't let them drive, but you can let fear say everything it has to say, because usually after it says it, it feels better.
Jordan, clip it. That's amazing. Right? I've never thought of it like that. That's so helpful, and I'm going to use that. Because one of the worst feelings in the world is when fear wins. When you're like, it could be as simple as like, you don't go on the roller coaster, or you don't paddle out, you don't even try. But I'm more relating it to, that sucks, but I don't feel like I do that anymore too much.
Right.
But now what I do is when I panic and I let fear win in that way, where I let it take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, every time when I come out the other side, I'm like, you idiot, you did it again. Like, that's how you die.
Yeah.
That's how people get hurt. Like, you need to stay calm.
Yeah.
When you're scared, stay calm. So I get very frustrated myself when I panic, because it's just the exact opposite thing of what you're supposed to do. So I'll keep that in mind. I'll open the door. Have a seat. This is rationality. Meet him. Let's talk about this.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think, though, that like essentially like all these different personalities fear, stress, or all of these things too. Like once you let them say what they have to say, um, they're just energy, like I think a lot of times when stress starts to take over your body, and like if you're, I always use speaking because I become like someone who I feel pretty comfortable now speaking in front of large crowds, but oh man, that was never true about me before. Like I couldn't even stand up in college and give a presentation without everything going wrong. It was so defeating every single time. Like I would know my subject so much. I would know everything. I'd go to sleep early the night before. I would try to not drink coffee in the morning. I would check off the list of what do I do to not let fear come today. I will do it all. I will do, because I hate it. I hate how it feels. And the minute I would stand up and start speaking in front of a small classroom of peers, fear was there. And then I would hear my voice shaking, and I hated the sound of my voice shaking. It sounded like I was going to cry. And then I would try to speak a lot quicker to get it over with, so my voice would stop shaking. And then that is a form of panic. And then before I knew it, I was speaking so quickly that I wasn't thinking about what I was saying. And then I was forgetting what I was saying. And then it sounded like I had no idea what I was talking about when I did know what I was talking about. But I was just scared and letting fear drive, in the sense of trying to push fear out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to push fear out of the car. And that was when fear would always take the wheel. Then one day I'm asked to give a TED talk, and I'm just like, oh boy, like I can't say no. And I'm just trying to, again, push fear away. You're not the same person you were in college. You can do this now. Maybe fear has left the building doing the same exact thing. I go to practice my TED talk in front of my family and a couple of family friends. My family and my family friends. Deer in the headlights all over again. And I can feel all the sensations in my body shut down. I just shut down. And finally, my friend Wendy, very, very intelligent girl, pulled me on the side and she said, when I heard you were doing a TED talk, I started watching TED Talks. And she's like, I watched this TED talk on stress. And I think it might be helpful for you, because what I learned is that stress is actually just energy. And this energy is being sent through your body for a reason, because you have something important to do. And that's why you feel this energy of stress, like because you have something important to do, you have something important to say. So rather than run away from it, like embrace it. Even if you don't know why it's there, embrace it and just know that you're about to deliver. And I just can't even explain how much that helped me. And the day of my TED Talk, I was the opening speaker. There was 1,000 people in the crowd. That's a very scary place to be when I just see the spotlight and I have to step in there. And as soon as I was about to go on, I feel my hands shaking. I try to shake them off. They're clammy, they're sweating. I try, and then I stopped. I said, no. And I just said, thank you for shaking hands. Thank you. I have no idea how this is going to help me, but I'm welcoming you. This is energy, and I'm welcoming you because I have something important to say. I don't know why it's important that my hands are sweating, but I'm so happy you're here, Sweat. Like, we're about to go do this. They said, you ready, Kimi? I said, yes. As soon as I said yes, I heard my shaky voice. I said, you know what? I love that my voice is shaking because I have something important to say. And when I walked out there, I just looked at the crowd and I just stopped. I didn't even speak at first. And I just took a deep breath and I just welcomed everybody to the table that was inside of me. And for the first time ever, I delivered. And like from that day on, it's just like swimming with sharks, which sounds funny, because I think most people would think speaking is less scary than swimming with sharks. But swimming with sharks is something I've been doing a lot longer. And it's just like, oh, and it just clicked. And I was talking, my TED Talk was about swimming with a big shark. And then it just all clicked in my mind that in the same way where when you see a big, scary shark, you just simply need to face it. And you need to stay calm. And you can't just backpedal and try and splash away from it, because that's just going to make it more interested in you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need to be able to hold your ground and say, hi, shark, welcome, but I'm here too. And it's the same thing with public speaking, the same thing with anything. You just need to be able to look that in the eye and say, hello, I'm so happy you're here. Let's do this.
That's
right?
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Could you put your hair away from your mic
Yes.
just in case? Oh, I love that. That's so special. I bet so many people can use that. I'm gonna use that. I remember I actually used to be really good at public speaking when I was younger, until I choked one time, and I thought I was gonna be really good because I used to be really good, but it was for it was never for something I cared about.
Right.
I was just public speaking because it was like part of the job, and I just get used to spewing, and I was like, okay. And maybe I cared about it a little bit in the I don't know. I got comfortable with it. But when we had our film play at the Maui Film Festival Hawaii.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a big festival.
Yeah, long time ago. And it was like opening for the big movie, which was Fantastic Fungi, which is an awesome movie.
Yeah.
And so I was like kind of part of, the film was playing a big role in the festival. And me being me, I pushed the festival owner to let me speak because I wanted people to like see my face. I wanted to sell myself. It's like, I'm like an up and coming creator. I wanted to like put my stamp on it and be like, I'm here and this is my film. And this is why it means so much to me. And this is why Hawaii can be proud of it. And I had so much to say. And Paul Rudd was like up on stage. And
yes,
then,
I think that's what people have to understand. The Maui Film Festival might sound like some cute little local community event. It's not. It is, but it's huge. We're talking like real celebrities, like A-list people, huge crowd, lots of talent. Big deal.
Big deal.
Okay, so continue.
So me and Nainoa Langer, who we did True Hawaii together and so many films together, we're walking up. He's super nervous. I'm like, I'm about to kill this. Like, I'm so excited. I pass Paul. I'm like, what's up, Paul? I'm like all confident. I get on stage. Lights hit me. I see all the people. I can't say shit. I can't say one word. I'm like, I can't say anything. I'm like, are you kidding me? I get so embarrassed. Nainoa saves me. He thought I was going to have to save him. He saves me. He delivers it. I say nothing.
No way.
Get off stage.
I can't even imagine.
There's the guy comes out with an award.
You said nothing.
I said nothing. I maybe said thank you. I don't even know. If I said anything, I blanked out. The guy came out with an award. We were just crossing paths. I tried to accept it. It had nothing to do with me. I got out. I went and sat down in the middle of the thousands of people before my film watch, and I just wanted to leave.
Okay,
I was just like, I just want to get out of here.
I was not there that night, but I asked one of my friends if they saw it, and then he said, and this is Shep Gordon, so big Hollywood guy, and he just said it not only was a great film, but those two filmmakers took the stage, and boy, were they sweet. That's what he said. So, I mean, there's also just something to be said about just pure vulnerability, blacking out. That shows that we're all human and trying to accept an award. That's even better.
Wow, that's nice to hear. That's so funny.
I always wondered what was said up there because that's what he said. He's like, but they also took the stage and boy, were they sweet.
Maybe you're just being nice. Oh, they're sweet. No, that's awesome. That's really good to hear. Especially since my brother is the best, Dex. You've met Dexter, right?
I met him, yes.
He's very freaking funny. And no one really knows because he's also very just like keeps to himself. He doesn't care to socialize too much. But he's hilarious. And one of the things he does that's so funny is he like finds the most clever ways to bring that up. Like he was like, oh yeah, like that one time that you choked at the Maui Film Festival. He does it so well. And he does it with all of the worst experiences of my life.
Right. That's what siblings are for.
But he's not just a dick. He's like so funny where he gets me every time. So it's nice when you can laugh at it.
Yes,
as well.
it is. No, definitely.
Speaking of fear, I have a girlfriend.
Yes, you do. Oh,
Awesome.
yes, you do.
And she's the best.
She is. No, I'm so glad we're talking about that because I swear I have wanted to do this YouTube video just talking to you about your girlfriend and this new chapter of your life with love, with Malia. She's incredible. And
She's
you
awesome.
two together are so incredible. How's that all going?
Super good.
Yeah. So speaking of fear, tie that in.
Speaking of fear, everything's well, you could talk about bringing all of the emotions to the table, not just fear, but stress and anger and sadness and all of these seats and all these things. It's crazy to me that now these emotions aren't just mine.
Right.
Because when those come to the table, she knows. She can't, if like my anxiety or stress or anger, it shows. I can try to hide it. She can try to hide it, but we both know what emotions are there. And you're like putting those emotions on people sometimes. And that's like super hard to learn how to like be able to bring those to the table and not have them like just fucking Buddy the Savage their table with all their emotions.
Totally.
But fear and diving, actually fear and everything, I'm like scared for the first time. Like I have someone that I care about and love. And like we were in Japan on a trip and I get super confused in cities and like lost and turned around. And I went to the bathroom in one of the stations. Stations are insane.
Yes, they are.
Everything looks the same. I'm like on my way to the bathroom and I'm like kind of thinking like I could get lost here. But I'm good. I'm just gonna, the bathroom has to be right here. Took like 1 or 2 more turns, tried to remember where they were. Got out of the bathroom like, oh no. And I had left Malia in a panic because I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I left her with all of our gear. So she's on the side of the road. It starts raining. I didn't know this yet because I was still in the station. She's on the side of the road with all of her bags and my bags. She has like all the phones and everything for me to find her the easy way. I go the wrong way. I leave the station the opposite way that I left.
Oh my gosh.
I get out of the station and nothing looks familiar.
You're on a totally different street.
And the fucking panic fear guy jumps on the table and just starts driving. And I'm running up and down the street looking for my girlfriend who I think that I just lost. And I feel so bad. And I run through all of the worst case scenarios. She thinks that I got arrested. Like she thinks that I'm not going to come. Like and then I get to her finally and she's just chilling. She's like, oh, I figured you like started working or something. Like she's just so chill. And earlier that day, I try to remember this moment whenever, because this has nothing to do with her. But at some point you're going to feel like your partner's being ridiculous and just not understanding. You're like, no, you're being ridiculous.
Right.
And you put all the blame on them instead of seeing what it is you're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
So whenever I do that, I try to remember this moment where I lost my passport in Korea. I left it at a convenience store. We go all the way to the airport. I get there, don't have my passport. Fuck. I have no idea where it is. I'm thinking maybe I left it in the Airbnb. Maybe I somehow left the coffee place. Maybe when I went to give the bus driver cash, it just fell out of my pocket. It's on the street. I'm freaked out. I'm bummed. She's chilling. Not adding to my stress. Just like, it's okay, babe. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We could be stuck in Korea for the next week. We have a whole like Japan plan. Like she's just so supportive and just chilling. Whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm remembering this every time I'm mad at you because you're fucking awesome.
Right.
Found the passport, got out of there. But fear. There's that story. And then there's also diving. Now that I'm diving with her, she's so excited about diving. All she wants to do is dive. She's checking the wind. She's checking the swell.
She's love it.
Ant. And if I don't have her in view, like I'll do my own thing, let her do her own thing when we're just kind of dorking around.
Mm-hmm.
And this is up for debate. Someone's leaving someone. I say she leaves me. She says I leave her. Mm-hmm. But I freak out when it happens, and I'm just like looking for her, and I like the panic says, "Where is she? Where is she?" Looking for my girlfriend, but I'm getting better at like sticking to her and remembering that she's a new diver. I always forget that. She's so capable, and just, I don't worry about her at
Right.
all. Conditions are a little rough. The get out's a little hard. I'm like, babe, you got it. Like, don't even stress. And she's like, no, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then I get upset because I'm
Mhm.
like, dude, like, come on, you got it. Like, stop tripping. Like, you're tripping over nothing. Let's go diving. What are you gonna do? Sit on the beach? And then I'm gonna go diving? She's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I'm like, dude, that's like, and I get all
Mhm.
upset because that's not, I'm getting better at like not live, like I have to, my plan is no longer the path
Right.
because I have another person. So I'm getting better at this. Hopefully. I'm trying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everything you're describing is just so relatable anytime you decide to be in a relationship. Like that's, I mean, one thing that I remember being told early on when I met this woman who survived in the absolute wilderness for a year and a half, um, is she told me, actually surviving by yourself, that's easy. But surviving with another person, like that's when things become really hard. That's when you find out who you really are. And I think it's so true. It's so important and that's why relationships are so amazing and they're so complex and they just and they're so challenging. But everything that we talk about with fear and letting it come to the table and all that kind of stuff, but that's all inward. But when you're like living with another person, so many times a first reaction to fear is blame. It's just like, because now you don't just have to like try and push it out or welcome it, but it can just be like the minute people get scared, it can be so easy to just blame something else or someone else. And when you're in a relationship, I think that is one of the coolest things to do is to be able to observe that, understand that, and recognize that, and then dig deep to your true vulnerability instead of blame and put that out there. I also just think like what you talk about with her being uncomfortable and, not wanting to go out and you getting frustrated, like that's also such a fine line, I feel, because it's so important, I feel like, to have somebody who can kind of push you a little past your comfort zone. But at the same time, that's a fine line. You also absolutely have to respect somebody else's like decision of their own path that they're taking. And I just think that is just something that you never really arrive to in a relationship. It is a constant circular evolution that's going to come up over and over again. And there's been times where I don't want to go do something and Justin will push me and then it ends up being the best day ever, and then there's other times where it's like, I just really need him to respect my line and hear that this is what I want to do with my day. And this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's actually like a code that you can crack. I think it's just the more time you spend with a person, the more you start to just realize that it's this push and pull and it's this dance. And you just get better at it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great reminder for me and for everyone and in everything.
But with diving, you guys need to decide early on in the day who's the leader and stick with it. Mm-hmm. And if you want to switch it up throughout the day, then you get to say, okay, babe, it's your turn to lead. Mm-hmm. But if not, you guys will always be leaving each other and thinking the other person's leaving you. Mm-hmm. It's just that you have to, that's the thing about having a dive partner. You have to have somebody leading. Mm-hmm. One person has to be the leader and you guys can both share that responsibility because everybody has their own different intuition. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it's whoever's more experienced, which would be you. You lead, she follows. But she's got this intuition in her that could take you somewhere really good. So there's times where you just be like, you lead. And I think like even last time when me and Nicole went out, like, I think I even did that. I'm like, okay, where do you guys want to go? Okay, then you go and I will follow because I have to say that. If I don't say you go and I follow, I will just be hunting and looking at the reef and forget all about everything because I'm hunting. So I need to sometimes just say that, like, hey, Sam, you lead. I'm going to follow.
That's so important.
Yeah.
That's great advice for all divers because it's so important to have a good partner. And sometimes I feel like people are bad at like establishing that partnership. Like it's all good on land and then you get in the water and that partnership kind of falls apart because it takes a while to build that partnership and to have that communication. But that's such a good line or I've never said that to anyone. Totally should. And that's probably why me and Malia are on different wavelengths because I've never said it. But being the more experienced diver, I feel like it's just, you follow me. You don't even know what you're doing here. Like, just, you watch me. That's how you're going to learn. That's how I learned. I followed my dad. That's how I learned.
Right.
Like, that I could never leave you because you're supposed to stick with me.
Right.
But I've never said that.
But if you establish it, then it's true.
Yeah.
And if you establish it, that's true. And if you establish it and she agrees with it, then there you go. But if you actually don't say anything,
then it's just,
yeah.
Because you're right, it's hunting. And I would also like to follow her and let her just do her thing because she's so excited. And that's what I think she doesn't realize how excited she gets. But I'll be like, I've learned very quickly, small, tiny lessons. Babe, just try this. And then I shut up. And it's back to diving. Because she's like me when I was 7, just like, why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
There's fish down there. Like, and she's just like, down there, like, so excited. Her explaining when she gets fish. I'll like have her like reenact. Like,
oh my gosh. I just love it. Because when I met her, she had never speared a fish, wasn't sure if she would like to. This is so cool.
The first time we went diving, she was convinced she wouldn't be able to do it. She's like, I'm not good in the water. I'm comfortable in the water. I'm like, babe, that's fine. Let's just go try it. Let's just go diving. I wanted her to have a spear. She's like, let me just kick her around. I'm watching her dive. She hits like 30 feet. She doesn't, her ears automatically clear.
That's amazing.
I know. I'm like, bro, you are kidding me. And she's just like really nice and smooth underwater. Like, here's the spear. Like, take it. And then we're like, I'm kind of explaining a few things. She listens to me for like 5 minutes. Every dive, I have a new tip. She's like, shut up, dude. She's down there. She's excited. She shoots like, I was trying to get her to shoot Roy's, but they're real dodgy.
Oh, yeah.
But her first fish that day was a Moana.
Nice.
Or Moano.
Yeah.
Either
People
one.
say both.
People
Yeah.
say both. Ford keeps telling me I'm saying it wrong.
I grew up saying Moana, but then I do think that Ford might be right, and the correct term is Moano.
Moano.
Yeah.
But so proud of her. And then her next fish was a Mimpachi. And like her telling the stories, because I would tell her, like, one of the pieces of advice I gave her was get closer. Don't just get closer. Mimpachis especially, very curious. Most fish that you're shooting, very curious. They're going to come around and look at you. Wait till you see the eyes and then you shoot. And so I'm like, how'd that go? She's like, I did what you said. She like has her Mimpachi and she was like, I was like, came out of the cave. Then I got closer and I looked him in the eyes and I was like, bam. It was so cute. And then every time I'm like, how'd it go? She's like, good. I looked him in the eyes. Bam. She's very excited.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. I would love to go diving with her one day.
Maybe she'll come tomorrow.
That'd be fun.
I was trying to get her to come. She's a little nervous. Like, I can't keep up with you guys. It's like, you can. But she didn't bring any of her gear. She brought cats instead. We have 2 little kittens for the audience. They're really cute, like this big.
Do they are they your cat's kittens, or did they show up at your door?
Her dad's cat's kittens, which is like an offspring of her favorite cat, whose name is Buddy. And so,
whose name is Buddy?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Almost looks like a furry buddy, actually. Got like a big wide face. It's really pretty cat. But it was like her favorite cat, and I was wasn't into it. She was trying to get cats. She was trying to get dogs. She like wanted a pet. And I was like, just like, babe, like we live in this beautiful time in our life where we have zero responsibility.
Right.
Let's not add any. It's going to come. Let's just take it all at once.
Speaking of which, this is Rat Patty. Come here, Ratty Patty. And same thing. I was like, we got to get a kitty cat or a dog. We have we have Buddy. And I always had pets as a kid, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
such a fundamental part of my whole upbringing was just having pets around. And Justin said the same thing. Well, I mean, we already have this responsibility of Buddy, but basically we all travel a lot. And so he's just like, no. But then Buddy and our assistant Carly found Rat Patty totally injured, barely could walk, stuck in the fence, and brought it in a box to us. And we're in the middle of this crazy shoot. Justin was not happy. Carly's like, I'm gonna get fired. And I was like, just go put it in the house. And yeah, he was just too busy to like see to it that the cat got out of the house. And then when he came in, and it's like this injured baby, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna make us do? Can't even walk, you know? Like, you're gonna make us just put it out on the street? Like if it was a healthy cat, he would have. Kitten and all, he would have said, throw that thing outside. But because she's like, couldn't even walk, it was more just like, okay, we'll just like be this safe place for her as she dies or something. Like he wasn't gonna like, but 3 days later, and I might sound cruel that we didn't take her to a vet or anything like that. I knew she was gonna be fine. Animals are tough, man. And 3 days later, she started eating, started walking. And then give it like 5 days later, I walk in and Justin's all snuggled up with her and petting her. But Buddy named her Rat Patty. I asked him, what should we name this kitten? Because obviously I was like, yes, we have a pet. Like, I didn't even break Justin's rule. I didn't go out and get one. Like, this one just came to us. It's meant to be. Like, let's name her. And Buddy said, let's name her Patty because I like to pat her head. And I said, that's nice. And then he said, oh, but she's so little. Let's name her Rat Patty because every time we see a dog, we call it like a little dog. We call it Rat Dog, you know? And so he's like, Rat Patty. And I love the name. Wow. And I love having a pet. And Justin does too. And it's so nice. And I feel like it's helping Buddy develop more compassion and more love and more gentleness. And she can handle him. So it's pretty cool.
I never thought about that. I think you're 100% right. Because we used to bring chickens and cats home. I brought every animal I've ever had has been that same story. Something's beat up or hurt or whatever.
Right.
Except the chickens. We'd catch the chickens. Compassion. I think you're right. We would save baby chicks that got separated from their mom. And my mom would let us bring home everyone. And most of the time they died. Sometimes they lived because they're just so weak. But that, I think you're right, developed a lot of compassion. And I got I think one of my best qualities is my heart. And it's my mom's. Like, I'm very loving and caring. And I have a big heart. And that's my mom. 100% all the way. And that's, I think, from those little moments of like always taking in animals and just being kind and sweet. And I've seen her do it with one of my favorite stories of my mom. It's such a simple one, but she was in Walmart. She brought home this like dead plant. I was like, where'd you get that? She's like, Walmart. And I was like, it's like dead. She was like, well, no one else was going to buy it.
Oh my God.
There's like all the nice plants. She's like, no one's going to buy you. And like takes it home, plants it, brings it back to life. She's such a sweetheart.
Oh, I love that. I love it so much.
But yeah, maybe soon Buddy will get compassion for plants.
Maybe
have him, because he's ripping out all of your plants. I don't know anything about kids, but I never ripped out my mom's plants because I helped her plant them.
Right.
So I understood, and I got to harvest from them. Yes. But maybe he's too young to.
No, he's definitely helped plant some plants, and those ones he's very concerned and caring about.
But the ones he wasn't a part of
he just wants to make magic potions all the time. And he has learned the hard way that taking all of my stuff, whether it's sunscreen or my paints or whatever, and squirting them into his magic potion has not worked out well for him. And so I think now he's just looking for like natural things that he can just pick and pull and throw into his magic potion. And if it's like grass and weeds, I don't care. But every once in a while, it's something that Justin really cared about and from the garden. And so he's just going to have to learn, you know?
How did he get that? Because me and you both had that. I made magic potions when I was a kid.
I don't know.
Where does it come from?
I don't know.
Did we watch the same movies? I don't know where it comes from.
I don't know either. But it's just something, I think it's just something ingrained in kids because our next door neighbor, Tay, she's 3. She is the sweetest, most well-behaved child. And if she comes here and Buddy says, let's make a magic potion, they will both just be partners in crime because he'll be grabbing everything from the cupboards and dumping it into this bucket and Tate will be right there stirring it. There's just something about that.
Magic potions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I wasn't allowed it. I had like 2 moms that would deal with me of my friends and the rest, I was just no chance.
Right.
They could come over to my house. But even then, the parents were pretty cautious. Like, don't do everything Sam tells you.
Yeah.
But I was not allowed at like birthday parties. I got like 2 invites a year. The rest, that kid is not coming. Because I would do the same thing. I'd manipulate the kids to doing the thing that I'm not supposed to be doing and doing.
Yeah. No, that is what we've been told at Buddy's preschool too. Like we found out that he became besties with this little girl in his preschool. And I thought that was a good thing until I saw that his teacher was not smiling and she told me that. And she continued the sentence of, and their friendship is based on both of their desires to disobey and try to get everyone else to disobey too. And that was, the day that the 2 of them, I guess the teacher had to go help someone in the bathroom. They stole her popcorn, gave it to all the other kids, and then got together and ran through the sprinklers.
Wow.
So, you guys have a lot in common.
I'm a little proud. He'll turn around. It'll be all right. This episode we're shooting.
Yes.
Or video, YouTube video, episode, film. I don't know what I'm going to call them yet. But I'm really excited about it. And how do you feel about my concept?
I love it. I love the fact that you are asking a question that most people, anyone that's going to come work with me or do anything with me, I feel like would shy away from that question. I feel like it's respectful to shy away from it. But I love the fact that you're basing the whole video on the question, is it wrong to kill a fish?
And what's your answer to that question?
Probably should have thought about that answer since you told me what this question is. But I mean, I don't have a definite answer.
I can give you more fuel too. But just because I thought about it a little bit more. But like it's based off that concept of, for me, because I don't look at it like that. Like I don't have a definite answer either. Like I don't even think like that anymore. The only reason that to me, it just seems like a ridiculous question until I bring it back to how I felt when I first started shooting fish, where there was guilt there. It's if one got away, or I killed it and I never ate it, like this stomach wrenching guilt came with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I killed it and ate it, it was just full of pride, big smile. And it's like both times a fish is dead.
So totally. And I think that's why I say like, I don't have like an answer in terms of like a general answer for everyone. If it's a very general, like, is it right or wrong to kill a fish? To me, that's very black and white. And so because I think most people would just think I would say, of course not, because that's what I do. But I think that it's really up to the individual. It's up to the circumstance. It's up to so many things. And I think that I'm just not a person to tell other people what they should do or what they should think or, and I just think there's so many different nuances in life that it takes so much close examining of self, examining of environment, examining of our footprints to truly know what that answer is going to be for an individual. Obviously, for me, that's what I do. And so, do I think it's wrong to kill a fish? For me, I don't. And the reason is because I think I've just come to terms with the fact that we as human beings, we have these footprints. And this might sound very like depressing to a lot of people, but unfortunately, like people would like to think, leave no trace, like, all this harmony and things like that. But the truth of the matter is that our species, we leave a very big footprint. We do a lot of harm. I wish it weren't true. It's true. No matter what. Like, seriously, from the houses that we live in, to development, to clothes, to stuff that we accumulate, to the waste that we make, to absolutely everything that we do. We're like the one species on this planet, that it's like what we do, it does leave this footprint. And so I think it's just so important to examine that thoroughly and say, how can I tread more lightly? How can I leave less unnecessary harm? And I have to say unnecessary because in order to survive, we are going to harm something. It's just the way of the world. And I would even have to think back and say, maybe we're not the only species on the planet, because living in the wild, it's like, that is what goes on. It's like for one thing to survive, another thing must die. And that's just like, whether plant, whether animal, anything, but there's harmony found in that. And so how do we as humans try to just live a little more harmoniously? It is by examining our choices and choosing the path that we feel most right about. And I do, for me personally, feel most right with going out and getting this food where, like I say, there's a lot easier ways to go get food, but I totally can be accountable for my footprint. I can swim out into the ocean. I can actually be immersed in this world, get a really good understanding of this exact ecosystem, try to make the most responsible choice of which fish I'm going to take and why, have no bycatch, come out, and then totally put this form of nature into my body, let it nourish myself, nourish my family, and know, do I feel okay about that footprint? Absolutely. Yes, I do. And no matter what you eat, no matter, whether it's meat, whether you're a vegan, whatnot, it's like if you were to actually look at the footprint that it caused this planet to get that food to your plate, into your body, it is mind-blowing how much harm that probably did. And so for me, choosing this path is something that I'm not saying, oh, it's right in a righteous way of like, this is the way and everyone should be doing it. That's not my style. I'm saying it feels the most right for me. And I think that as I say that, I have to make that disclaimer because I also would never want to put that type of pressure on people that this is the way you have to do it or you're wrong. I think that nature, and this is something I believe very much, that we all kind of know, it thrives in diversity. We know that about plants. We know that about animals. We know that about ecosystems. And so we as humans are going to thrive most in diversity too. So what I choose as right for me might not be the exact same that's right for the next person. And if for them, it's a different way of getting food, like as long as you're examining that path, examining that footprint and doing it thoughtfully, I think that if we all do that, every single path should look different. And that is diversity. And that can be harmony, and I just think that as long as we're examining, that is fine. As far as like morals and, and just taking a life of another beautiful living thing, absolutely, that was hard for me. Like when I was little, I remember we would go Owama fishing. You know, little Owamas. We
Mhm.
get these bamboo poles. This is like one of the most simple forms of fishing. Bamboo poles we get from the bamboo forest. Little line, little teeny hook. Would go stand in like thigh deep water and just get these little French fry size fish. And we actually would just eat them like French fries. We would fry them up and eat them. And I didn't really have a problem with that because they're so delicious and it was so fun and it's what my family did. But I remember one of my first times doing it, the first Owama I caught, rather than putting it in the French fry department, my mom was so proud and she grabbed it. She's like, awesome, I needed this. And she grabbed that Owama from me and she got out this bigger spinner fishing pole. She took the hook and I just saw this cute little fish with eyes looking at me and she put a hook right through its head and it was still alive. And I just felt my heart like break as she did that. And I saw this thing just flopping around and then she cast it out. She's like, maybe we'll catch a papio. And I just tried to suck it up and I just walked away like stunned. Like that poor fish is just because of me, because I did that, now has a hook through its head and it's just like out there, you know, squirming around. And at the end of or I don't even know when it was, but several hours later, when it was like done, she like reeled it in. No papio had eaten that fish, and it was dead. We'd always just like go to the beach, make a fire, use a pan, and we'd eat our little Owamas right there at the beach. You know, we were very very simple, and we'd already done that. And so when she wound it in, I just remember like grabbing this dead fish. And I remember I was little, I remember climbing behind this rock jetty where no one could see me. And I held it in my hands and I just cried and cried and cried. And like, I remember praying to God that day. And I don't come from a religious family. But I just remember praying to God as a little girl, and it sounds so dramatic, and like begging God to take my life instead of that fish's life. Like it's like a core memory I have because I felt so bad. Like I just felt like this beautiful living little thing. I did this to you. Like take me instead. And it's interesting because those were just like very real emotions, you know, like very human emotions with this love and respect for living creatures. And then if you look at me today, I absolutely feed my family killing fish, you know, and shoot them with my spear and watch them wiggle at the end of my spear until I'm able to get them in my hands and end it. And yet I say that feels most right to me. And so I just think that it is such a complex thing, but I also just think that in the same way where we talk about letting fear to come in and have a voice, like letting stress overtake your body and know that it's there to serve good. I think I have found my way to let that same care for the fact that I'm taking a life, I welcome it to the table, but it's now to the point where it has transformed and it isn't agony. That energy has transformed into gratitude. That energy has transformed into responsibility. And my responsibility is a promise to my prey that this is not taken just for the sake of taking, you know, and that this, like I said, is going to be something that I cherish every morsel. I remember the story of this fish. I remember the ecosystem of this fish. When I take this fish home, I am going to treat it with the utmost love in how I cook. And I think that's why cooking is such a passion of mine, because that feeling transformed, and that's letting love into the table, right? That's letting love into the table. And I can still give love by treating it like the absolute gold that it is, which we so often don't do when we just go get food from the store or the restaurants or whatever, you know, when we don't think about the story of where food comes from. But I can't not think about it. Like I still have that 5-year-old inside of me, maybe not that dramatic, but I definitely still care so much about the fish that I take and the fact that I want every morsel of it to be appreciated. I want it to nurture people. I want it to continue on. And to me, that is a footprint I can live by. And that is a footprint that I can feel good about. And then your next part of your question of what about the fish that rips off your spear and gets away, that will always be a more gut-wrenching feeling. Always. Like, because you don't want to kill something unnecessarily. You don't want to kill something and have it go to waste. But that's why you try your best to take good shots. That's why you try your best to do things as good as you can. And yet that is something that inevitably will still happen. And all I can say is nothing goes to waste in the ocean. Nothing goes to waste in the ocean. Like that little fish that I did end up putting back in the ocean that day, I can only imagine how many little crabs it fed or eels it fed. And the fish that get off my spear, same thing. Like the sharks, everything else, like nothing will go to waste in the ocean. And it's not going to make us, take that and turn into Underwater Rambo and shoot everything and say that. But it is to me a nice consolation prize, just knowing that as long as you try your best, just know that the ones that do get away, it's sad. They're going to suffer. But honestly, everything in the wild suffers. There's no other animal I know of that's going to, whether, a lion in Africa or a shark in the ocean, that's going to like catch something and like put a knife in its brain before it tears it apart to shreds. Animals are eaten alive in the wild. Like, look at how I found Rat Patty. You know what I mean? A dog probably got her. But like, it's just a part of the wild. We are the humans that have a different take on it. And I'm glad that we do, because if we didn't, man, we would be way more dangerous than we already are.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why we were made to question that side,
That's a good way of putting it. There is a reason. And yeah, it's because it is that fine line of sometimes I'll catch myself on different days like very introspective and conscious of life, and then very numb, don't care, like it's just like that's just it. Like it's just like I don't feel bad when I don't land them in Pachi. I feel a little wasteful. I know that eel around the corner is stoked.
Thank you.
That thing's gone in like 3 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Every time. But then there is that side of me where, and I think you're absolutely right. Like it's important that we just have that. Wait, what was it? It was something Steven. I think it was Steven Ranella's. He had that one movie, some Under the Stars, or there was a
Stars
movie.
in the Sky.
Yeah, and it was his whole end feeling, like the way he ended it was just a really cool, like when he was just like almost. I don't remember if he was not quite cursing the fact that he's the only predator that has to have compassion for his prey, but also how that's like, that is a good thing. It's like, it's a good quality for humans, as we're so destructive, to have that eye of balance. And I grew up religious when I was a kid. And for me, that was like my dad, like drilled into my bones, you eat what you kill. If you don't eat it, it's a sin. It's like a sin, like pray to God and say you're sorry sin. But if you eat it, it's this big prideful moment of, so like I remember having that pretty well in me, of like I'd feel really bad when I didn't, but it was good. I like that idea of kind of where it put me in a place where I was very conscious of what I killed. And I remember the first time I killed something that was not to be eaten. I just got a lucky shot with my BB gun. Like, I was like, I'm not going to hit it, but I want to shoot things. I want targets. It was a mojito, those cute little birds.
Cute little green birds. So cute.
I blasted it and watched it drop out of the tree. And I just like, my heart just sunk.
Yeah.
I walked up to that little bird, picked it up in my hand. I started crying and I buried it. And I felt so bad. I don't know if I ever told my dad. I felt so bad. That was the first time I remember taking something's life and feeling horrible about it. In my younger years, before I understood the ecosystem of the ocean like I do, if I shot something and it came off, I felt terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Nowadays, I don't care so much. I'm like, I just fed something else.
Yeah, I mean, I still definitely have that gut wrenching, like, oh, you know, like mainly because as a human, like I don't want to cause unnecessary suffering on things. And like at the same time, like you also just have to understand again that all of these animals that are going to turn into food are going to have bad days, you know, like that. I mean, just people sometimes think that like, you know, oh, no, animals don't do that or whatever, or like animals just like, they need to survive and that's why they kill. It's like killer whales will just like toy with things. They will just like sometimes just crunch turtles and play with their guts and let them fall. This little beautiful kitten right here,
Monster.
She doesn't eat the lizards. She just kills them and lets them get up again and swats them again, you know? And so it's like, and when it does come to food, it is a vicious thing. And so it like, even if you do shoot something and it's swimming away with its guts out, it's not a good feeling to me. I don't like to know that I did that, but I also do have to accept that that is the way of the wild. And I try to do it as, you know, make that the least amount. Again, it all comes down to doing the least unnecessary harm.
That I'm not careless in the sense where I'll take a bad shot. I'll always take my time and I'll try to deliver the best shot that I can. But nowadays when it rips off, I don't think I have that feeling anymore.
Right.
Maybe sometimes things become so, what's the word? I guess familiar, but it just becomes just like, it's part of you. It's part of the experience. Like especially if you're 3-pronging, something's going to get shot and come off.
Right.
Almost every time. So it becomes very much so part of the experience. And so you're going to get some sort of shell towards it. But when new things happen, like I shot this like bull mahi. Never shot a mahi before. It was the first one I ever shot. And I shoot it and it's a great shot. I'm already celebrating.
Yeah.
Very excited. But I don't have like my deep water gun and I have one gun that I beat up on the reef all the time and the line snapped.
Yeah.
And I just watched him swim off with this spear going through him. And I was like, I felt bad. I had to talk to myself. I was like, shark's going to eat him. Shark will get him pretty soon. That shark will be happy. But I was bummed.
Oh, yeah.
I was way more bummed. I didn't really care that like the fish got away. I was like, whatever. Probably because we already had like good eating fish in the cooler. So that didn't hurt so bad. It would have been cool. I was excited. It was the first mahi I ever shot. But it was sad because it was new.
Right.
It's like, now I'm not used to seeing that. I don't have the callus. Like when I shot my first pig, spearfishing is different because I idolized my father.
Right.
So there was so much pride involved and anticipation to the moment I got to do it. Because I can remember being on my dad had a little blue Zodiac. We launched it from Polahale. I was always scared. If the waves were too big, I wasn't going. But if it was, sometimes I'd push it. And be like, I'm coming with you, Pops. And I'd have my life jacket on and I'd be we flipped plenty of times trying to get out and surf. And it was always terrifying. And then like, I would still remember like we'd be hit a wave, back off, go back in, get another wave, just trying to get out. And we'd get out and be like, yes, we made it. And my dad and one of his best friend at the time, they would go diving. And me and my uncle Pooch, we'd watch. Or he'd drive the boat because of the current, and I'd watch. I'd watch him go down. I just couldn't believe it. I'd watch him I'd be counting. Like, I'd be like, that was like 2 minutes. He was on the water for like 2 minutes. Pooch, you see that? He's over there. He's got a fish. We'd go like bring the boat over, grab the fish, put it in the boat. I'd hang over. I was so small that I'd have to like inch off the boat. And because I was scared to get in the water. Like, it's just terrifying out in the middle of the ocean. We're like a mile out. The idea of jumping in and having my whole body scared me.
Oh, totally.
So I'd hang my head off and I'd just barely get my goggles in the water, and I'd watch my dad just kick into the deep, gone. And I'm like, one day I'm going to see what's down there. Because I'd watch him disappear for minutes and come up with this giant fish. I'm like,
right.
What kind of world is down there? I was so small that I couldn't get back in the boat. I'd always have a panic. I'd be hanging there. Pooch, Uncle Pooch, Uncle Pooch. He had to like come up and grab me and yank me back in. But there was so much enchantment with spearfishing that a lot of that feeling of like guilt or shame or uncertainty around killing a fish didn't exist for me.
Right.
But when I picked up hunting and I shot a pig for the first time, fish don't scream.
Right.
I got a spine shot on the first pig I ever shot. She just lay down and started screaming. And I don't remember if I only had one arrow or if it was just full. What's it? Starts with an N. Novice? What am I trying to say?
I don't know.
Just unprepared and unknowingness in this new world.
Yes.
I went up and just was trying to heart punch it with a knife. And I would miss. And then I'd miss again. And I think she's dead. And then she starts screaming again. And I'm just like, and then the thing was dead. And I was just like there and bloody and just like I couldn't help but just like cry. Just a little,
totally.
just like, oh my God, that was brutal.
Right. And that to me is very interesting too, because it's like no more brutal than catching a fish and throwing it in the cooler and letting it flop around and it's no longer in water and it's trying to breathe and it can't because it's in air and it dies a slow, wiggly death. You know, it's really no more brutal than that. But I think it's also part of our human compassion that we also feel a lot more. We sympathize so much more with animals that look like us. And so I think fish are like an easier category for most people to accept because they don't look like us at all. They have tails. They're from another world. We don't look like fish. And so I think like I get to, you know, post my stuff, show what I do, get a lot of recognition for it. You know, whereas if it were mammals and things, like I'd probably get so much more criticism and hate and whatnot for it, simply because we as humans, you know, and I don't know, like, I mean, that's a question. Is that right to just value, you know, this life over that life just because it looks more like us, you know? But or they look like our pets, you know, they look like whatever, but they have eyes that remind us of ourselves. They have fur, they're warm-blooded, all these things, they scream, you know? And so therefore it can be such a heavier experience or feel so much more gory or whatnot because we, I don't know, because we put ourselves at the center of the universe. And so because it's that much closer to us, that life seems to have that much more value, which makes sense because all we can relate to is our own perception, you know, of ourselves, our families, our pets, or things like that. And so it normally does tend to hold more weight, even though I just have to say, like, you know, what I do is can really be looked at the same thing. You know, I mean, obviously I do always try and put a knife in his brain and turn it off, but I'm just saying that people don't dog on fishing nearly as much as they will bow hunting, which is interesting.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I get it. I don't think it's right. And I don't think it makes any sense.
But it's real. And you
but
feel
it's real
it.
and I do get it.
Absolutely.
I'm like, okay. It does kind of make sense.
I'm like, there's so many things about, taking mammals that I'm like, whoa, like.
It's brutal.
The sounds they make, the actual blood, and then even cleaning the animal, you feel like it's warm. I'm not used to, like, I clean fish all the time, you know, and it just makes it feel so much heavier.
It has
you know?
all your parts.
Oh, totally.
I look at me different now that I've cleaned so many animals.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes like I touch someone and I'll think about, I'm like, oh, that's like a backstrap. I'm like, oh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's a weird thought. It's strange.
Right.
But you're 100% correct. I guess it's just when you get closer to it. But yeah, I mean, I'll post a pig. If I shoot a pig, I'll post the pigs. I think I've only done it once. I put a heart over like the head. I didn't want to show it. Like, I knew people would freak out about it.
Mhm.
Goats won't show the face because they're like a little bit cuter. I shot a deer and I haven't posted about it because I'm like, I don't know if people want to see a dead deer.
Right. But you can hold two fish
Yeah.
up like this and smile.
And people are stoked.
Yeah.
It's weird. My greatest lesson for this, the hardest one, speaking of just categorizing animals by importance and what is to die and what isn't to die, we were in Mongolia. We were doing a piece on the Kazakh eagle hunters. Big storm rolls in. Winter's on the way. They're kind of like, if we go outside, we're dying. Like, it's too cold. We're not doing anything today. We're gonna call the neighbors. They had everyone had their own little satellite phones, and they're like, there's no neighbors really. I mean, I think the closest neighbor was 2 miles away, but they all lived in this beautiful valley, just big.
Yeah.
Whenever I travel somewhere now, I'm always looking for grand.
Right.
Kauai, that's another thing, but just this beautiful stillness, beautiful people, beautiful culture. And they make these calls and everyone comes in and pitches a hand. We're gonna kill 5 sheep and 1 horse.
Mm-hmm.
And like the sheep, easy.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. We're killing sheep. And I'm like, a horse? Why are we killing a horse though? But that's super big. Kazakh and Mongolians, they love eating horse. It's a big part of it.
Oh yeah.
And the cows they have, they sell. It's worth more money.
Right.
The sheep they eat. The horses, they, just like us, ride, befriend. It's part of their daily life. And then when it gets to a certain age and it's the oldest horse, one's dying every year. We'd been there for several days. I connected with a horse that I loved because like horses, I don't know about a lot of people. I always headbutt with horses. They have big personalities. I love them to death. I've spent my whole childhood around them and we always clash. Like, it's just, I don't know what it is. We clash. I have that personality. They have theirs. Every once in a while, maybe 3 or 4 in my whole life, I've clicked. Me and that horse clicked. We had some moments.
And was it that horse?
We butcher the 5 sheep. I'm like helping. And then doof, doof, this horse is trying to get in the door and it won't go in. And it's my horse.
Oh my God.
And they're just shoving this horse in the door. And the horse is like, fuck no, dude, I know what this means. So I'm like, oh, that's my horse. But I have this personal connection to this horse. I know their connection to the horse is much deeper.
Right.
But if we're just going to live in my little world right now, there can't be an animal that I have a closer connection to. Horse, we don't eat horse. That's foreign. Just the idea of killing a horse to eat it is strange and doesn't quite sit right with me. I'll eat a cow, no problem.
Right.
No different.
Exactly.
And then it's my horse that I've been riding. Okay, let's just add a little bit more emotional connection to this animal. And now we're going to we tied up all 4 legs and pulled. One guy pulled and we pushed. We pushed this horse over and I hold it down.
Oh my gosh.
And we all it was a very big deal.
Yeah.
It wasn't Esker's house. Whose house were we in? But Bashahan was his name. He's the head of the house, puts his hands out. We all bow our heads. We say a big, long prayer. You could feel in there this wasn't being taken lightly. It wasn't just nevertheless, this horse was dying. He grabs a blade, slits the throat, and buckets of blood, just fills up a bathtub full of blood. And I'm just holding this thing down as it's kicking. And I'm just I did the whole thing with them. I watched that horse get turned into sausage. I helped clear the guts out of the the intestine lining that we use. I was there for the whole thing. And that day I went out and I sat under the beautiful Mongolian sky, big thick clouds, beautiful mountains. And I just thought about what just happened and how emotionally torn I was. And I was like, good. Now apply this to every time that you're eating meat. because this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't care because you don't know the animal.
Mhm.
You weren't part of it, but this is what's happening. That animal has a life just like this one did. So like apply that, and that when I do that, I like that you don't have one path.
Right.
Pick your path. Try to live as harmoniously as you can. Everyone has a different way of doing it. And that's remembering that everything has a life. That's a nice little compass for me. I'm not by any
Totally.
means perfect or doing it right, and I don't think anyone can or will. I just, like you're saying, I love when people just be a little conscious. I think that's it. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, I know 100%. And yeah, I actually, one year I was doing some work for Vice, and I got assigned to this story to go to Kazakhstan and be a part of a horse harvest, because that's the food that they ate. And oh my gosh, I was so like not dreading it, but kind of dreading it. And then at the very last minute, I got reassigned to go to New Zealand and do and work with the people there, like the uni and the fish that they're harvesting. But I really had to question myself because I was so relieved like that I didn't have to do that. And later I did watch the video of the person who did go to Kazakhstan, and man, I just felt so heavy, exactly as you said it. And I can only imagine after like riding this horse and having this connection, but it's absolutely true. And one thing that makes me think of is, so I had a pig named Muddy, and yeah, I had a pig named Muddy. Okay, let's just get into this trauma now. But basically, we lived in the boonies in Haiku. We did not have a lot of money when I was young and growing up, and every single year, because I read Charlotte's Web, so every single Christmas or anything, I'd be like, "Can I please have a pig? Can I please have a pig?" And my sister wanted a cat. My dad would go out and find her a stray cat, or she wanted something. She'd always get it. I'd be like, hello, I've been asking for a pig. And so one day my dad was like, okay, here's the deal. You want a pig? We're going to get you a pig. And I guess he told me, but we're going to raise this pig as food. You know, you can have a pig, you can see a pig, but this is how we live. We're going to raise this pig as food. I think I just all I heard was, you're getting a pig, you know? And I was just like, woohoo! And went to this pig farm on Maui. I remember just being so whoa, I didn't know it was gonna be this stinky here. There's just so many pigs wallowing in, there's so much pig, so much poop smell. But I just went through it and picked out this one perfectly pink piglet and said, that one. And I was just ready for my pig. And then some big uncle comes and grabs it, throws it in a burlap bag, ties it up and flops it in the back of the truck. And I was like, not what I expected.
Not gonna hand it to me?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a bow tie and then I asked my dad, can I please ride in the back of the truck? And so he said, it was back in the 80s, we were allowed to do that kind of stuff back then. So I was 4, so I rode back in the back of the pickup truck holding this burlap bag with this pig all tied up. I remember urine was leaking out of the bag onto me, and just hi, Muddy, your name is Muddy, and we didn't have any neighbors, and that pig became my best friend. And that pig was so cool, and she got big fast, and to the point where I could ride her. I could ride this pig, and it was to the point where the mailman, I would ride my pig down to check the mail at the end of our long, bumpy dirt driveway. And it got to the point where the mailman got such a kick out of it that if he didn't see me there, he would actually wait. He would actually wait before doing the rest of his route because he wanted to see me riding my pig down. And we would wrestle. And there was always this joke that I named her Muddy, but anytime we hung out, I was the muddy one. And I think I got a little older and probably started playing with her less and less. And that was when my parents figured it would be a good time. And they didn't tell me. Like, I just remember one day hearing my mom say, Chris, where's the truck keys? And he's like, oh, I think you had it last, didn't you? And she said, no, you had it last when you took Muddy to the slaughterhouse. And I just freaked out and was just like, what? And Muddy was gone. And the next time I saw Muddy, it was on a plate being served to me. And I was being told this whole speech, kind of like the one I just told you, about love and honoring the animal and this and that. And they're like telling me, oh man, we waited almost too long for Muddy because we knew you had such a connection to her. And then by the time we harvested her, the meat, I don't even get it, would have been past its prime, but they're trying to make me feel good. But they're like, people at the slaughterhouse were so impressed. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But I just remember like trying so hard, like to take a bite of Muddy and buy into this whole concept, but feeling so wrong about it. And that was something that took me so long to get over. It was to the point where I was probably like, maybe a couple years ago by, or maybe a year. I was probably like 5 or maybe 6 when that part of that happened. And like, I remember being 14 and still getting teary-eyed when I thought about it, and like picking that bone with my dad and being like, that was wrong. Like, you killed my best friend, and he's just like, okay, well, maybe we could have done it in a better way. Like, I will give you that. And but he would always say the same thing. And he said this since I was 6 till all my life. And I think it was right around like that 14 and 15 age that he said it so many times that it finally actually started to make a little bit of sense. Not saying you should do that to your child, but I am saying that my dad would always, he'd laugh at me, first of all, but he'd always laugh at me. Oh, Kim. And he's like, you're just looking at it all wrong. And he's like, do you remember that day going to that pig farm? And I'm like, yes, best day of my life. And he's like, remember all those other pigs? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, dude, think about what you gave Muddy. He's like, do you think any of those other pigs ever even got to see the light of day? He's like, remember those little stalls they lived in and like this and that? And he's like, not your pig. He's like, not Muddy. Muddy was taken from that life where she would have lived there every day until the same thing would have happened to her. And what happened instead? She got to go to this beautiful place. Oh, by the way, she became best friends with all our dogs. I forgot to tell you that part. The dogs just accepted Muddy as part of the pack. Anytime I had to go lock up Muddy in the pen, they would cry and howl. And so he's like, she got to come to this beautiful place. She got to eat oranges, eat all this good food, eat all the food you gave her. She had all these friends of dogs where she could run around. She could roll in the mud. She could enjoy the sunshine. She had a little girl that would go play with her every day and ride her. Like, think about all those other pigs. Like, they didn't get that. Muddy got all of that. Muddy got to live every single day of her life with love. And then he goes, and then Muddy had one bad day. One bad day. And he would just like hit his knee and be like, oh, you ask me right now if I could sign up for a life where I have one bad day? He's like, I would sign in a second. He's like, anybody would. Who do you know that gets to have such a wonderful life and have one bad day? That's what we gave to Muddy. And at first I would just be like, and then I swear, he said it to me my whole life. And the more I started looking around and seeing where food comes from, the more I started understanding that, yeah, just like you got to know that horse and you got to connect with that horse, that doesn't mean that you couldn't have connected with all these other animals in the world. But like, if you look at a lot of times, the lives that animals live, like, is it really such a bad thing? like that crew up there with that horse to give something a life of connection, respect, and love. One bad day, like that horse had, and then let it nourish you. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's still very complex. Yes, I don't know if I could ever do that again or would choose to do that again. But is it wrong? Back to that question. Mm-hmm. Is it wrong? Can't say that it is.
Damn, your pops flipped me.
Right?
Which you technically flipped me just now, but hearing his perspective, I was like, no, Pops, that was dirty. But now I'm like,
he would always end it on that. If I could just have a life with one bad day.
He really brought it around, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had that practiced.
And, you know, and that's how I kind of look at, you know, the fish in the ocean. I mean, I know that you're constantly predator.
They're having bad days.
And like living in or whatever. But for the most part, I do just say there's something so beautiful about hunting in the wild because it is like this beautiful, wild, free life in the sunshine, in the ocean, in this beautiful place, and one bad day, you know, and that is not the story behind most food, you know?
Oh.
So, and I'm not trying to dog on anything. I'm just saying that the more, it's just like, what do they say? The more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah.
Right? So the more you just like start thinking about things, the more you start to examine every single option, there's just nuances in everything.
One thing we can definitely dog on is where most meat's coming from. It's like factory farming. I'm cool with dogging on that. Can we get you to flip your hair a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, you just took me on a roller coaster of emotions.
Right?
Yeah, you guys flipped me. I was expecting to be like, no. I have a friend who did the same thing and they couldn't kill it. Like, it ended up turning into like a 150-pound pig that lived on the couch. Like, we can't do it. Yeah. I have a question on not dogging on anyone since that came up. And I'm just kind of curious. What about, like, I would say a majority, I hear this all the time on social media. And I'm pretty sure it's bullshit coming from most people's mouths. Talking about ethical kills and feeling bad when something gets away and putting all this time to like, I hear it all the time and I don't buy it from most people. Most people, I don't think they give a shit. How do you feel about that?
About ethical kills and hunting and something getting away?
Or let me clarify the question a little bit. I personally, like, I know a majority of hunters and people that I know, they don't have the same compassion, maybe, but they're not. Just because they've detached themselves from that emotional standpoint doesn't make them, it makes it feel more ruthless and more like bloodthirsty and more like, but I personally, I don't necessarily know if that's true. And like, just speaking on not dogging on anyone, like, do you think that there's like a line of compassion you're supposed to have? Because sometimes I do watch hunters and people behave and I'm like, shame on you. Like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm doing the same thing. Everyone draw their own line. But I have a line that when someone crosses it, I'm like, you do you. I'm just not hunting with you. Like, I don't hunt with that style. I don't like that.
Totally. And, you know, I think it is one of those things where you really would just have to take a deep dive and truly understand, like, is this really, like, does this really make it wrong to this point? And doing that with everything would just cause me to have a whole life of just questioning and thinking and whatnot. And so I think what I have learned to do is just kind of like find out where, like you said, where my line is and just hold it, you know, and like you said, the same thing, like you don't necessarily have to make somebody an absolute villain, but just you find your like-minded people through knowing your own values. And for example, like when I was first getting started diving, I would just dive with anyone because I just needed a partner and I just needed to learn. And this one guy I started diving with, I swear he would just shoot fish, like so much fish. And it would be to the point where it would like, I didn't have the stomach for how much he would shoot. Like, I think I've always just been a, you know, take what you need and, you know, take a few at most type of person. But he would just shoot them up, and like just have so many huge like blue oohoos on a stringer to the point where when he would dive down, I would be trying to send the oohoos like aggro waves of energy so that they'd get scared and swim away from him. Like, it, you know how we're talking about team victory and always being on the side of your dive partner? It was the opposite. I would be on the side of the fish because I couldn't handle how much fish this guy would shoot. And that was my line. It's just like, I don't really want to dive with people like that. I'd rather dive with people who are just a lot more selective, and for many reasons, not just like my own moral compass, because that can even be examined, you know, and still like what this guy is doing is just a drop in the bucket compared to where most fish come from in industrial commercial fishing and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, how much, you know, can one person really do when they're holding their breath and going down there, even if they're pulling trigger every single time, compared to, you know, bottom trawling. And then you can always take it that way. And this guy is a saint, you know. But I think just for me personally, it's just what, like I said, picking your line and choosing my partners accordingly. And for me personally, I love to, first of all, have a challenge and not just shoot everything in sight. Secondly, I like to look at diving as going to the grocery store and knowing kind of more or less like what I want to get and seeing what happens with that. But I also just have a cutoff where it's just like, okay, this is enough. I have enough for me to eat. I probably have even enough for me to share. I'm good. And my other thing is that I love to go diving. So I want to go diving again. And so I don't even normally want to catch enough fish where I can just fill up my freezer and have enough food to eat for a month, because I'm not going to waste any of it. But it's to the point where even when the water's epic and Justin's like, let's go again, I'm just like, but we don't need more fish right now. So you're either going to have to go cook it up, give it away, do this, do that, and then I'll go diving, you know? And that's my line.
It's a good line. So I guess that's another question. How much fish is too much fish? But I think that I'm probably more on your page. Very selective. Don't go killing everything. It's not like, it just doesn't, I don't understand. It would bring me back to that wasteful kid feeling if I was just murking for no reason. If a fish goes to waste in my fridge, I feel bad still. If that was in my fridge, I didn't freeze it in time, I didn't eat it, that thing goes in the trash, oh no, that's a bad feeling. I do feed it to the pigs now. I have pigs that come in. So a little more cycle. But I'll just throw gut scraps. I've probably only wasted a few fish in my whole life. Maybe as a responsible diver, I don't know what age that started. There's probably a point there where I was wasting a lot of fish. But yeah, I there's something that rubs you wrong when it doesn't feel like someone's thinking full circle. It's like, oh, if you're not, like, the most beautiful part about free diving or any type of hunting is immersing yourself into this ecosystem. Whether I'm on land or I'm in the ocean, the actual feeling of diving and hunting and being a predator, or I'm walking through the grass and I'm catching sign and tracks, and I know that right there, a deer was eating that, and that track right there was this morning, and that's a pig. And if I wanted to, I could sit on this trail and know that that pig is going to circle back at some point today because this is his track, and I know they only go so far. This is where he lives. It's those moments. That's what's cool. And when people are just like slaying fish for no reason, it's different if you have a purpose for it. If you're trying to feed somebody, you got a paina to provide, that's different. But when someone is in complete disregard of the fact that they're a small piece in a bigger thing, and they can always use that excuse of, yeah, but I'm just a small piece in a bigger thing. And what they're doing so much more destructive. And I'm like, whatever, that's nonsense to me because this is our reef. And if everyone dove like you, the diving here would be a lot different. Just on this one little reef. I'm not trying to save the world. I'm trying to take care of our little place right here. And I don't think you think like that. You don't think about tomorrow. You don't think about what my kids are going to be diving. You just want to fill your cooler for some reason.
Yeah, no, I think it's just probably just a distaste to when people are operating out of ego to the point where they have just lost respect for that which is taking care of them, you know? And I think that probably would be my bottom line is like, I want to be around people, not people who are trying to make themselves out to be the sustainable saints, but just people who have a genuine core value of connection and respect to the land or the ocean, which provides and feeds for us, you know, feeds us. Like that to me, it's like, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as me, but as long as you have that running through you, like our lines are probably going to be pretty harmonious.
And the conversation and just the whole feeling of it. Like, what if I was to sit down with one of those divers right now or one of those hunters, what would we be talking about?
Right.
Like tusk size? I get that. I understand. Like I understand the trophy aspect of hunting, which is something that me and my Malia go back and forth on sometimes. Cause I don't know what it is, but at some point, like when you first start, you don't care.
Right.
Cause you're in the entry level of hunting or spearfishing. So everything is a success. And then as things come easier, you want to push it. You want to get bigger, better fish. You want to get bigger, better animals, older animals, animals that have the chance to outsmart you. Well, they all have the chance to outsmart you, but they're a lot smarter. They've been around. They're harder to get on. That is a complex that I haven't been able to create a like, I have no argument for. I'm still figuring that one out.
Totally.
Because it does feel egotistical and my girlfriend will beat me on that every time.
Oh, and we all have egos. Like, even when I talk about that, I am not pretending for 1 second that I don't have an ego running through me on all of this because I absolutely do. That's another part that makes us human. And people who like to pretend that they have no ego, or I can't even stand it when people say, oh, don't worry about me, I have no ego. It's just like, that was your ego that just told me that, you know, like, are you kidding me? Like, that's what makes us human. Like, and it's a good thing to check, but we all have it.
Yeah. That's another whole interesting topic. But as far as free diving, what is it given you? Like besides fish and food on the table, which is a given. What has like free diving given to you as far as like the way you see the world, the way you operate?
I think, first and foremost, it really would be those lessons of all the different voices in my head and learning how to have conversations with them, because just immediately, just the whole physiology of it, right? Like, of being able to hold your breath. There's just so much internal, like, it's a big internal journey you have to go on. And so I think just this connection and observation to everything that's going on within my body and within my brain, it's given me that more than anything else in the world. And what I mean by that is, like, when it comes to holding your breath, you know, for a lot of people when they're first getting started, it feels impossible. Like, they're like down there for a few seconds and they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I need to get closer to air. I felt my body try to breathe. That must mean I'm close to passing out. Like, get me air now. And then I think the more that you explore that and the more that you keep freediving, for me, it's like I just realized that it's like my brain is this little dude, and he's sitting at this whole control center filled with buttons. And when we first start holding our breath, Dude Man has been monitoring all these screens and watching things within us for so long, since we were born. And we've been breathing since we've come out of the womb. And so he's seeing this graph that just goes like this. And he's been watching it, for however many years you've been alive. And then all of a sudden you start free diving and he sees this graph just go like this. And he's like, what the heck is going on with this thing? So he starts pushing buttons. And I think that's when he's like, okay, anxiety, go get her, go do your thing. Okay, fear, go do your thing, Oh, it's still like this. Like, okay, diaphragm, give her a contraction. And that's what our bodies do. Like, at first, when you first start freediving, you're going to start to feel these contractions right away where you feel your diaphragm just like do this. And it feels like your body, without your permission, is trying to take a breath. And that could be very jarring the first time you feel it. And that will pretty much send any novice diver scrambling to the surface listening, because that's unusual. But again, the more you think about it, the more you do it, the more you realize it's just brain pushing these buttons. And so being able to have those conversations and just like say, oh, hey, anxiety, what's up? Like, thanks for coming. Yep. You made me feel all the things that you do, make me feel like I have to go back up for air. Do me a favor, go tell brain I'm okay. I'm doing this on purpose. Oh, hey, fear. Yep, we're going to be okay. Go tell brain that, oh, nice to see you, diaphragm. Thanks for the contraction. And you have these conversations, and then it just gets more and more comfortable, and you all start working together. And then, like I said, you develop a healthy relationship with fear, with anxiety, with your contractions. They become so much more subtle, and they help you tell time, And so I think, like, first and foremost, just that essence of freediving and learning to respond to the sensations I feel from my brain has helped me so much in life on land, has helped me so much when I get angry, has helped me so much when I get scared, has helped me so much, like even just like the way that we treat other people. I'm just realizing when we end up, snapping at someone or responding in a way because they were rude to us, that's still a form of panic. It really, really is. And it really normally doesn't get us anywhere good. And so, or like when you talk about looking for Malia and you're panicking and running the streets of Japan. I mean, same thing if you're late for work and you can't find your keys. If you start panicking, you're not really looking. You're not really thinking about it. You're just panicking. And so I think the main thing it's given me is when I feel any form of pressure on land, not underwater. I mean, underwater as well. It says underwater has taught me that even on land, when I feel a form of pressure, whether it's from society standards, whether it's from what other people think about me, whether it's from how somebody's treating me, when I feel it brush against me, it has given me such a better ability to stay calm, to welcome that, to analyze that, to assess it, and then to respond rather than just react in panic. And that alone has been life-changing. That has helped me with relationships, that has helped me with business, that has helped me with absolutely everything, is being able to understand that adversity is a part of life. And we can't run from it, we can't hide from it, but we also don't have to just straight up panic. Like, we can face it, we can talk about it, we can have these hard conversations, and we're probably going to get to a much better place if we do so staying calm. And it has done it to the point where that kind of stuff has become an indicator. In fact, like that's what that TED Talk was about. It was called When You Feel the Need to Speed Up, Slow Down. And that is something I learned in freediving, that when you feel the need to kick fast and go get air, you should probably start kicking slower to conserve that air and to relax and to know that you're okay. Same thing in life. When you feel that need out of panic to speed up, that has now become a pretty good indicator for me to slow down and respond accordingly. And that has been the biggest gift of all.
That's a big gift. And that's like, I think that people can get that everywhere, but you have to accept adversity. Like I'm getting to the point now where luckily all my adversity is very easy stuff so far. Like no one really close to me passing away. It's not like that level of adversity. It's not like life crushing kind of adversity, but it's the kind of stuff to where when you just almost want to give up, or you're that fear, that anxiety, that stress, like it's those things that come in. And so far, everything that life's thrown me, I've been able to deal with it. And it's because of that kind of stuff, like what spearfishing gave you and probably gave me, and maybe there's a few of the things that I contributed to. But if you don't have something to push up, like to push against you and kind of beat you up a little bit and give you adversity, you don't have the chance to grow and to see what you're capable of and what you're made of. And like, that's such an empowering feeling. And now when I do feel adversity, I'm able to tackle it with that. Like, okay, what are we learning today?
Absolutely.
Like how am I going to be better?
No, that's like another huge thing that spearfishing gave me. Like, is also just like, is accepting defeat or, accepting defeat or what can feel like failure at times, because, oh my gosh, like when I first started and like, big, beautiful Omilu swam up to me when I had a 3-prong and all these things and it got away. I would literally cry myself to sleep over the fish that got away because I wanted it so bad. And I would literally think like, that will never happen again. That will never happen again. There's no way I will ever have a 3-prong cocked and ready and I'm just going for mampachis and then a big Omilu's gonna slide. All the stars had lined up for me and the universe did its job and I blew it because I suck and I'll never get that chance again. And that's why I'm crying myself to sleep tonight. And then lo and behold, what happened again in a totally different way. Totally different way, but same, bigger Omilu. And I was able to do it. And even this specific story, I 3-pronged the 18-pound Omilu. It snapped my 3-prong right in half, but I knew I'm not giving up, and I just knew like that thing, I 3-pronged it in the head and I responded so much better because of that time when I responded poorly. I was more prepared. So then I get it right in the head, but then that thing turns and snaps like the graphite of my spear. I didn't even know it could do that. And I have nothing on me but a knife. And this Omilu is like swimming through this whole cave system with the spear sticking out of its head. And I'm like, how do I get it? And I took so many dives just trying to chase this thing down, grab it by the tail, everything. And I was getting so tired, but I was not about to give up because it happened again. And then that Omilu swam to this one part of the crack that it thought it knew, but forgot it had 3 feet of spear sticking out of its head and got stuck. And I was able, probably on my 11th try, to swim down, grab that thing, slide my hands in its gills right as the spear fell out of its head and put a knife in its brain. And that was my Thanksgiving dinner, which was an 18-pound Omilu with a 3-prong. And I just know that was totally because of the first time when I just cried myself to sleep, thinking it would never happen again, and replayed that over and over again. And that is what diving has taught me, is that you are going to blow it over and over and over again. But that's not really failure if you learn something from it. If you learn the lesson from it, if you think about it, it's only going to prepare you because something really great is going to come around again. And diving has shown that to me so many times when I'm like, I have just reached rock bottom in how hardcore I blew that opportunity, how hardcore I just sucked in that moment. And then before I know it, something even more amazing is happening and I'm able to execute on it exactly because of that. And I feel like that has helped me so much with life, like so much with business, so much with like, with everything, you know, like if you lose a sponsor, if something goes bad, if all these things where it just feels like, oh no, I'm finished. It's like, I just laugh at that. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I know this from diving. That's just the first Omilu. Like the next one's coming. And I am now so much like more prepared for the better one, you know? And I do feel like that is how life works. And you can either take it as a failure or you can take it as a lesson. And the value of a lesson is such a win that I just feel like I'm pretty darn good at seeing the beauty of defeat. And I love that.
That's a good way to look at it. I do the same. I don't know if it's as useful as yours, but whenever I screw up really bad, I'm just like, that's going to make the next one taste better. Like, it's like, I always have to go to the next one. So I'm like, there's going to be another one. This dive sucked. This sucks. Blew that. But when I shoot the uku on my next dive, I'm going to be that much more excited coming up to the surface. Like, oh, I sucked last time.
Yeah. And I think that's what it does. It makes you, if you're going to continue to dive, you better be tenacious. You know, there's no way you can continue to dive without having that in you. And I think it's just a good way to live life, is to be tenacious about it and just know, like, okay, well, the next good thing's coming.
Tenacity. I remember when I was, before I say all that, first off, an 18-pound Omilu is a hammer fish.
Yeah.
Especially with a 3-prong, for those who don't know. But you're like, people also don't. Actually, I don't even know, because you're like a mother to me. So like all mothers, you've had a life before I came into the picture. You're an incredibly successful diver. Like, you've been spearfishing a very long time. And sometimes I forget that. Like, what is your story with spearfishing? Because you went from kind of feed the family with pops, right? You started off with your dad.
My dad would go spearfishing for food. And that was back when they didn't have much money. I was about 4. And I think it was when I was about 5, he started letting me tag along with him. And so I didn't learn, I'd never picked up a spear or anything like that. I was just a tag along, but he let me swim out with him. We would climb down these crazy cliffs of the North Shore of Maui and jump off these rocks. And I would immediately feel so small being in like deep water right away. And my only job was just to keep up. That's it. Just keep up with dad. And basically always jokes that he just didn't have money to hire a babysitter and he still had to go get dinner. So that's why I got to come. And I basically would just follow him along, and I was his cheerleader. Like, when he would go and get a fish, I'd always feel scared when he would go down and I'd be on the surface, but he'd always come back up with a fish in hand, and I would clap for him and put in my orders for what I wanted to eat, and he'd get them. And it was like this magical time. By the time I was 7, our lives changed a lot because both of my parents started making money. My dad finally got his like construction company he was trying to start like up and running. And my mom, who basically didn't graduate from high school, was able to finally save up enough money to go to college when she was 46, I think. 41. She went to MCC for the first time at 41. And then she got a nursing degree and became a nurse in the emergency room. And so anyway, total lifestyle change. No more living in the boonies. No more diving for food. Both parents working. Live in a subdivision. That was a shocker for me. All food from restaurants and stores mainly. And so then I just grew up like everyone else. and didn't have any spearfishing experience really. And it was just like this nostalgic part of my memory. The most magical memory I had was the days when we were poor. I missed it so much. Moved to Oahu after high school, did a culinary arts degree, graduated with it at 21, and just all of a sudden just felt miserable. And I think it's because I finally had kind of come to the end of a path of exploring. I think I always was like, yeah, I'm going to go get this culinary degree, but I don't know, there's something else I want to do. I just don't know what it is, but I'll figure it out. And then before I know it, I'm out of school. I'm an adult. I have a job in a restaurant, and this is like it for the rest of my life. And that was when it hit me like something is missing.
Mm.
And every time I thought about it, all I could think of was, damn, I really wish I could just still be diving with my dad, and it was just something I didn't really see people doing. I was living in Honolulu, just, working and whatnot. And it wasn't until one day I was a canoe paddler. I went to a regatta, and these guys because I was working with fish every day in my restaurant, but none of them were local fish. They were all flown in from afar and frozen and whatnot. But one day I just saw these guys put some fish on a grill, and it was all the same fish that I would watch my dad bring up. It was all the fish that I knew from heart, all the fish that my mom and I would clean and cook. And it was the heart of our family back then. And I was just like, where'd you guys get this? And they said, well, we went diving. And then all of a sudden it was just like a light bulb, like, oh my gosh, it's still happening. People are still doing this. Like, I always just somehow thought that like, I was just suffering from nostalgia. And I even looked up the definition of nostalgia, and it said longing for something that no longer exists. And I thought that the way that my family raised me of eating pigs and living off the land and catching fish, I just thought people don't live like that hardly anymore, know? And then all of a sudden I just like saw like, I still can. It's a much different world. It's a much more modern world, but it still can happen. And I just begged all those guys to take me diving, and none of them called. And I think it's probably because I told them like that my experience stopped when I was like 6 years old, but that was all I needed. I just needed to see it was possible. And I went to a dive shop. I got a 3-prong, and I came out here to the North Shore, and because my dad's still on Maui, but I just remember like that day getting out of the car and seeing people all over the beach and feeling so embarrassed. Like this girl, and it was different then. Like we're talking like 20 years ago, How old are you?
20, 26?
Okay.
27?
Wow. Okay.
Oh, I don't know how old I am.
Okay, that's okay. But
Yeah.
see, we're talking like almost a lifetime ago, right? For you.
Yeah,
that's a long time, okay?
Yeah.
And so it was different then. It's not like you just saw a lot of, there wasn't this huge resurgence of like going diving and fishing and hunting, and it definitely no girls doing it. Definitely, like you don't see girls walking around with spears back then. And I just remember all of a sudden getting out of the car and seeing all these people and just feeling like, oh my gosh, like everyone's gonna look at me, the girl with the spear, who everyone's gonna know. She has no fucking clue what she's doing. And I was so embarrassed. So I tried to like hide my 3-prong and walk past these people. And I'm like, once you get in the water, you'll feel fine. And then I got in the water, and I didn't feel fine. I was like, I actually have no idea what I'm doing, And I had little bodyboarding fins, surf shorts, rash guard, but I just started swimming. It was a horrible day to be out there. Didn't even think about checking the weather, and it was dirty. I was afraid of sharks, could not like stop looking behind me enough, and had no idea what I was doing. And basically the anxiety, that guy was there, and he was strong. And I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm going to have to turn around and go in. Like, this is dumb, and I am scared. And right when I was about to go in and turn around, it was a windy day. So this like chop, this wind swell in the distance broke on the surface. And when it broke, it made bubbles. And as soon as I saw bubbles, my whole body went calm. And it triggered this memory that I had totally forgotten about, but my muscle memory didn't. When I used to follow my dad around when I was 5 years old, my job was just to keep up. It's very hard as a kid not to get distracted in the beautiful world. See a turtle? Of course you're going to start looking at the turtle. You see something pretty down there? Of course you're going to start. All of a sudden I would look up at 5 and I didn't do my job and my dad's nowhere in sight. And I would feel so scared. And I would have to put my head right below the surface like this and just look. And at the very edge of my visibility, if I'd look everywhere, I would look for the bubbles left by his fins. And as soon as I saw those bubbles, I knew Dad swam that way, go that way. And I would just sprint and I would find him. And that is like, that's what would like save me, was seeing the bubble. He wouldn't wait for me, just seeing the bubbles left by my dad's fin. And so now, as a 24-year-old woman, I saw bubbles and it just calmed me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, swim that way. And I was like, I knew my dad wasn't there, but I knew that it made me feel better to think that he was. And so I honestly that day just started following bubbles left by the wind swells that were breaking because it was such a bad day to be out there. And then I would squint my eyes and imagine what my dad's silhouette would look like. And I just would do things like that to trick myself to stay calm and keep going. And then I ended up coming across this little reef that came up, and it came up all the way to about like 20, 25 feet. And I saw the little fish. And I remembered watching what my dad would do. And I just spent the next few hours just simple trial and error over and over again, going up and down and trying to 3-pound these fish. And I got 5 fish that day. And it was the best day of my life. Like it really was. And when I came back into the beach, the woman that came out of the water was a different person than the woman that went in the water, because I no longer hid my spear. I just held my spear, held my fish, held my head high, and walked out of that water knowing that I had just done something that I would never let go of for the rest of my life. Knowing that that sense of nostalgia was just the delusion, and that this was something that had been calling me back every day of my life since then. And I just knew I will never let go of this. Never, ever, ever, ever. I'm holding on to this. And that night I went home and I just cooked up these 5 fish and shared it with my roommates. And I was like, man, culinary school and culinary career, this is the best meal I've ever eaten. Fried fish, are you kidding me? And it just it changed my life. Like after that, like I was happy. Like I just genuinely was. And it didn't matter if I was still doing, working a job I didn't really care about, or this or that. Like it was like I had this secret world, and I would live in the memories of my last dive, and it would keep me on a high. It added such quality to my life, such a sense of satisfaction. And I just think I just wanted to make up for all the lost time. And so I just got obsessed, and I just went diving and went diving and went diving. And then I started showing up to my own paddling regattas with my own fish. And then all those boys started calling. And then I just dove and had partners and learned things and got mentors and got taken under people's wings, and just it became my obsession. I fell in love. And then 3 years after that, I was just like, what's this thing called the national championships? I want to try that. I was just hungry. I literally realized that this thing had been knocking at my door my whole life. And like, once I had it, I was like, we're going all the way. Like this is it, And then so I wanted to check out the national championships. My mentors had told me, Kimi, like, I know it's been 3 years, but we think you're ready. And they're like past national champs and whatnot. And they're like, yeah, so when you're ready, like, let us know. And then I told them, it was 2008 now. I'm like 28 years old. and I just said, hey guys, I'm ready. I want to do the nationals this year. How do I qualify? And they all laugh. They're like, don't do it this year. And I was like, why? They're like, it's in Rhode Island. Like, wait till it's somewhere like, wait till it comes here, because the nationals, it travels around. Wait till it comes to Hawaii. Wait till it's at least in California. You don't have to fly as far. Wait till it's in Florida. You have to fly far, but it's warm water. Like, don't go to Rhode Island. Like, and I'm like, but I'm ready now, and I went. And that was actually my first time ever diving outside of Hawaii ever. Had to wear a thick wetsuit. It's a kayak meet. I remember it's like getting there only 4 days in advance, because that's all I could really afford to stay. It was expensive to stay there. And then jumping and flopping off in the water and realizing I can't even see my own fins. Like, this is scary. And having to go through that whole fear thing again. Like, my first day of scouting, I couldn't even get to the bottom of the ocean because it was just so dark and dirty. Granted, there had just been a storm. But like, I would dive down and I would see this like layer of green. And there's the bottom, we're here. And then I go right through it. And that would freak me out. And then I'd see a layer of brown, okay, there it is. And I'd go right through that. And it would always just leave me like sprinting back up to the surface. And I felt like I just didn't even know how to dive. I'm like, I'm so out of my league. What am I doing here? And finally on this one dive, I just trusted, like, stop expecting where the bottom is and just trust that it's going to come. And I finally went all the way down to the bottom, landed in about 60 feet of water. And then it just so happened that at the bottom, there's all these mussels on the bottom over there. They filter the water. The bottom was actually clean. And I like learned to dive there. And I also learned that the fish there eat the mussels, so I could hear. And that was like a different thing from Hawaii. You could hear the fish, the tautags and whatnot. You could hear them and follow your ears. And that's how I learned to dive. And then 4 days later, I have to say, I got really lucky. I mean, definitely was skill too. And the fact that I was a canoe paddler from Hawaii very much helped. That was really fun. Like, the way the nationals works is like they have like this buoy. Everybody lines up. They blow this horn. You have to paddle your kayak to your spot. I chose the farthest away spot. You have 6 hours to dive before you come back. And I just remember like it was a great day. As soon as I started paddling, like, and not to brag, but I was just like walking on these like buff men because we're paddlers here, and it was just off to a great start. And then the universe did the rest. And I ended up getting like the second biggest fish of the entire competition. It was like a 30-something pound striped bass. And my partner and I won every single category in our mixed team division that we could. And I became the national champion. And so that was really cool. That was like the first time I really set a goal for myself and totally a big goal and achieved it. And I just felt so grateful. I just felt like it was destiny. And because of that, when I came home, it was kind of a big deal. I got celebrated and I got recognition for it. And, I think eventually, like, it was a very long road after that, but, I just stuck with it and it ended up becoming something that I actually made a career out of. But that's the gist of the story.
Crushed it. I didn't know that
yeah.
story. I knew pieces of it. I never actually heard that whole story. Wow, what a beautiful story. That's like fairy
my partner
tales.
Andy. So he was one of my mentors, and they had all told me like, no. And then Andy just said, Kimi, I know Calais is one of my mentors. I know they're telling you don't go because in Rhode Island. And he's like, but I have to tell you one thing. If you're ready now, you got to go now. And I said, okay, cool. Then will you be my partner? He's like, no. And then I called his wife and I was like, I really want to do this and no one would do it with me. And she talked to Annie and Annie said, I'll give you 4 days. Like, that's all I could take off from work. And so we went together and individually I did really well, but as a team, we did exceptionally well. And that was just so fun. And the kind of cool thing is that Andy's still a good friend of mine, but we competed again for the first time together just a few months ago. Last year in June. And the only reason why, because I got out of competition pretty soon after that, because again, I didn't have the stomach for it. Like, because essentially that one was so special. Like, that one was so, so special. I got recognition. It was awesome. It kind of seemed like I was going to possibly be able to make a career out of this. I kind of competed for a couple more years and was doing good, but I just didn't have the stomach for shooting so much fish on one day. Like, that was my, and the fish didn't get wasted and whatnot, but it just, I think when I came home, what happened is I would still go out to these places on the North Shore and I would try and just have these nice dives. But my brain was like, oh, how many points would that fish be worth? How many points would that fish be worth? And it kind of started changing things for me. And so I walked away from competing after that and thought I would never make a career out of being underwater anymore. And thought that's what I was giving up. But I just told myself, like, I'd rather lose the chance of making this a career and hold on to that feeling of being in love with something. And this is taking away that feeling. So I need to change it up. And then I just kind of went on this whole different thing about like, well, what is it that you love? And it's like, I never loved diving with my dad because of trophies. I loved it for the food. I loved it for respecting where it comes from. I love it for these lessons. And I just was like, I'm just going to focus on that and I'll give up the whole career thing. And instead, what happened is that way more people resonated with that than they did who the national champion was. Nobody knows who the national champion of spearfishing is besides us, like besides the people who entered, and that's a very small like group of people in the world. We're talking like 60 people in the world, And so I kind of just like started diving for why I wanted to dive and thought that all that recognition would go away. And instead it just multiplied. And then it was just companies like, Patagonia, Olukai, like Yeti, like companies that could care less about the trophies, but care more about your values and your grit started approaching me. And then before I knew it, I'm like, no way. Like, by just truly staying true to my own values and thinking I was going to lose everything, but knowing that was more important, it actually created a path that ended up being better than my wildest dreams. But the ironic thing is, or the cool thing is that just a few months ago, the national championships did come to Hawaii. It hasn't been here since I think like for a very long time, but it did come back to Hawaii and it came to Kona. And I would have never entered it, especially here in Hawaii. I just don't want to shoot every single fish in sight for points until I found out that it's invasive species only. And this is the first time in history that a saltwater spearfishing national championships said we're going to do invasives only. But that's what happened. And when that happened, I was so proud because I was a part of the original movement of like invasive species tournaments and stuff like that. When I did like decide I didn't want to compete anymore, I'm like, well, I'll still compete if they're invasives. And we started holding these like Roy roundups on Maui and whatnot. And that ended up being really fun, but I never thought it would become something that was recognized by the nationals, And so the fact that these two worlds that I once just like really loved, like that first competition feeling and then invasive species tournament came together, I'm like, dude, I need to enter just to support this because this is a milestone like in my career, even if nobody else knows that. Like the fact that nationals is now invasives only in Hawaii, that's amazing. And so I asked Andy, want to do this again? And he said, yeah, and it was our first time competing again after 15 years. And we ended up winning it. So that was really cool too.
That was cool to see.
That was really fun. Yeah.
I didn't know that was nationals. That's so cool.
Yeah. It was just like all Roys.
I thought it was another Roy roundup.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
That was, I never thought that the national championships would do that, but they did. I think that's the only way they would have been able to have it in Hawaii.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And you guys like have a big part in that. I don't know how you see yourself, but you are one of like the prominent voices of Hawaii. especially in the spearfishing community. Like, you really did have a massive effect on your industry. That's incredible. That's so cool.
It is. It's a huge honor, but like we were saying about the spearfishing community, like it's just a special one. You know, it's like it is just such a special one where I feel like it just feels like one big family to me. Like I was crying before I even got in my kayak at this most recent national, just to see everybody again. You know, like just to see everybody, and then to see how many women were there. Oh my gosh. Like I was literally just like paddling out crying. Like, this is amazing.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great full circle story. Well, from Hawaii with Aloha, what is one thing that home has instilled in you that you like to pay forward?
I just think like the main thing that I value that I have learned from living in Hawaii, from growing up here, is just it just comes down to respect. You know, it's just a very, very strong level of respect for everything around you. Respect for this beautiful land, respect for the beautiful ocean, respect for the people, and respect for the creatures that feed us, whatever it is. I think that is then what also turns into being humble. And I mean, for example, there's a reason why you don't know so many of these stories you just asked me about, is because most of us aren't just going out. And I even still, like, I love talking to you. I love sharing the magic of what that day felt like. There's even a part of me that's still like, oh my gosh, like, stop bragging, you know, you're not that cool. And I just think like that's my favorite part about being here, is that you don't get too far if you are just like trying to show off like how great you are, or how much more you know than everybody else, or how much better you are than this and everybody else. I love that gets you absolutely nowhere here. I love it. I love that so much. I love the fact that it's like, it's just like how you treat others, what you can contribute to the greater good of the whole. That is what's going to make you a valued member of society, a valued member of your community. And that is true wealth. And I just feel like if everybody could operate a little more with those values, what a wonderful world it would be.
Way to go. First podcast wrap. Thanks, Mama Kimi.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Respect is definitely a core value in Hawaii.